Hello guys, hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Junia, and today I wanted to talk about this very famous Russian female serial killer. The first one, at least the first one that we know of. She lived in Imperial Russian Empire during the reign of Catherine the Great. And I think this case is it's gonna be not just a true crime video, but a history lesson in some kind of, because I'll explain the concept of serfdom in Russia, which is a very interesting thing. And overall, I think this story is very interesting. But before I start, I wanted to say thank you very, very much for watching my channel and subscribing. Maybe like a week ago, we hit 50,000 subscribers, and that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Also, as you can see, I got a new camera. Let me know if you like the picture. It's like a camera, a real camera. I'm not good with like lighting. I'm not a camera woman, but I will try to figure it out. I guess it looks good. But yeah, thank you very, very much. And without further ado, let's start. So our story begins with two peasants going by foot to St. Petersburg from suburbs of Moscow to St. Petersburg. Why? Because they wanted to petition to Catherine the Great, to the Tsaritsa herself, about their noble woman, the woman who basically owned them, because she was a murderer, she was a killer. One of them lost 3 wives to her murders. Each year he would get a new wife. She would become her maid, and then she would get murdered 3 times. The other one lost 1 wife. So who was their noble woman? It was Daria Saltychikha. Daria Saltychikha was not very rich necessarily. She wasn't that noble. Her great father, as I remember, got the title during the reign of Peter the First, or Peter the Great. She got married to this man who was more noble and richer than her. He was 16 years older. Yes, 16 years older than her. But they kind of had a good marriage. She was very busy. He worked at this, he was like a minister. So he would spend a lot of time traveling during his business trips. And once he got sick, he caught a cold and died. And Daria Saltychikha, or as she was named, Saltychikha, that's her, like a killer name, Saltychikha. She ended up having manor, I guess you say that, and 600 serfs. 600, not counting women. So not women, not children, only men. 600 men. Back then they didn't count female girls, women, and children. So, was it like very rich? No, she was a middle class noble woman. But she had a lot of acquaintances that she got from her husband that passed away. So she knew a lot of very prominent, very noble families, a few ministers, a few secretaries in Moscow. And yeah, later they would help her hiding all the evidence. But she also had two sons, yeah. But they do not really play any roles in this story, I guess. I'm not sure what happened to them after all of that, but these men arrived and signed a petition to Catherine the Great herself. That was the very year when she started reigning. How did she start ruling the country? She killed her husband. Catherine, if you didn't know, wasn't Russian herself. She was a Prussian German princess, but she had her husband was very weird. He was a very weird man, but that's another story. But she had the nobility on her side, but at the same time, she was a new queen, the new empress, the new Tsaritsa of Russia. So she wanted the common rural peasant to love her, to adore her, to know that she's on his or her side. Also, Catherine was a big fan of French philosophers of that time, like Voltaire, I don't know, Diderot, and she was corresponding with them. At that time, all Europe was dreadful. They didn't want any of this liberal new type of philosophy to flood people's mind, but Catherine back then she was very modern, very liberal. So she sent that petition to a ministry, like a kind of like a police department, and they didn't know what to do with this, how to start the investigation, because imagine you have to investigate the noble woman. How could you do that? And she was like a nepo baby. She had connections. Who would dare? So there at that ministry, at that police department, there was one man called Stepan Volkov. He was the only one who was not noble, but who was like a common citizen without a title. And he was given that case because he kind of had nothing to lose. And him and his young assistant, they started the investigation. So when he arrived at her house, the first thing he did, he arrested all of her accounting books, all of her documents, and started analyzing the reports. There were many reports because like when you have more than 600 people all working for you, you had to write things down. And he found out about 138 suspicious deaths. They were suspicious indeed. So 50 of these people, they got ill, they got sick, and then died in a few years. Then 72 disappeared. So sometimes serfs could escape and run to run away from their family, their owner, the landlord. But that was a lot. That was a lot. And 16 went to their husbands. They went to like another village, and these husbands supposedly lived in another region. So they just kind of migrated to a different landlord. But still very suspicious. Usually, landlords would not let their peasants to just go and change their location, because that would mean losing their rent. But about serfdom in Russia, that's a very big thing, very big topic. So serfdom initially existed in Europe, Western Europe too. But in like 15th, 16th centuries, it started disappearing. Why? Because their cities started to grow bigger, and serfdom is, at least in Russia, it's kind of slavery. And now we know that slavery doesn't work economically, because people are not motivated. They are not motivated to work as hard as they would work for money, for salary. But naturally, serfdom disappeared in Europe because it was more beneficial economically for them to actually work for like manufacturers to get their the salary was like minimal, and the social inequality still existed, but serfdom disappeared. Whereas in Russia, with its vast lands, it was basically necessary, because people, the noblemen, the landlords, needed this stable agricultural labor, and peasants would not stay on these lands. They would go to the cities, but who would feed them? There are so many lands, someone should live on them and protect them and work on them. So in 17th century, serfdom became all legal, absolutely legal, and the peasants were restricted in their movement. They lost their personal freedom, and up to the end of 19th century, it would get only worse and worse for them. So technically, serfdom was not slavery. Supposedly, peasants were not the property, were not property of the landlord, and they were still subjects of the Tsar. But they were not able to move to another land. They were not able to technically get married unless their landlord wanted them. Sometimes they would, pick your husband or your wife. They were not able to do the job that they wanted. So you wanted to be a janitor, but you have to be a dishwasher, and vice versa. So sometimes that there was a law for peasants. They could not be sold without their land, but of course that was not a very strict rule, especially for very rich and very noble landlords. And after some time, by the 18th century, everyone already knew that serfdom was basically like a very big obstacle for Russian economy, but abolishing serfdom meant making nobility struggle, make them poorer, and emperors didn't really want to do that, because then it would main, but it's the same as with southern states in the United States of America. You can still trace how southern states are poorer and not as developed economically because they were relying on slavery for so much time. And it's the same here in Russia because, of course, there was like modernization in Soviet Union, blah blah blah, but you can kind of still trace why we suck economically back to serfdom. But yeah, now when we kind of know the why and like the meaning why they were serfs and so on. This man, the investigator, needed to have evidence. He couldn't just say like, look, they are suspicious murders, I found them. He had to have either two witnesses who were reliable, and by reliable it means that they had to be noble, they had to be they couldn't be peasants, no. Or he would have to make Daria Saltykova admit her guilt, but of course that would not happen. So he started asking everyone who lived nearby and realized that everyone was involved. There were a few bishops, a few secretaries, ministers, merchants, and so on. Everyone was involved around her except for one guy, Tuchev. I forgot his name, but he was the grandfather of the famous Russian poet Fyodor Tuchev. Him, Mr. Tuchev, and Daria, they had some kind of relationship, and supposedly he even proposed to her, but then or he didn't, but their relationship ended. And Daria was furious. Saltychikha asked her peasants to go to his house and set it on fire, but they got scared and came back to her, and after that they were punished. They were severely punished. And of course all the other peasants who would try to apply to petition earlier, all of them were sent back by local authorities and they were punished. Some of them would get the sign, how do you say, this brand or stamp with like very hot metal on their forehead or on their cheeks with the B, with the Russian letter B, which meant buntavshik, or like rebel. Yeah, and then they would be exiled to Siberia, to like a working camp. So nobody really wanted to say anything about Saltychikha. And he spent 3 years investigating that, and by the end he found out about a lot of deaths, a lot of most of her victims were women, young, beautiful women who were her maids, who were cooking, cleaning her house. She would have like logs, like wooden logs around the house, and she used to use them to beat the girls till they were dead. She also liked to put the victim outside when it's freezing cold, and then splash them with cold water for like hours. She killed only 3 men. One of them was a little boy that she hid. The second one was, I think she made the boy's dad to flog him, and flogging was a popular punishment, corporal punishment back then. But of course, her flogging was horrible, and the guy didn't die because of the flogging. Then she left his body outside when it was freezing for the whole night, and the boy didn't die. It was a young man, and then she took him to her house, to her room, and then she would beat him. The body, again, when they took the body to the kind of I'm not sure if they had the the medical investigation or autopsy, something like that, but someone saw the body, they saw all the wounds, and they wanted to do something, but then they found out that who did it, that is Saltychikha, and it all ended. So no real evidence by other noblemen, only one, because you had to have two, and there is only one, and peasants do not count, no real evidence. But Volkov just gave up. He sent, there was a very big pile, or a few piles of all the evidence that was not real evidence. He sent that to the Senate, and it was laying there. I mean, people were kind of going through it for another 3 years. Saltychikha was arrested in her home all this time, and she was very chill. She was sure that no one would know, no one would prove anything, so she was just chilling. But she stopped killing. And in 3 years, people in Senate also gave up and sent the whole thing to Catherine the Great for her to make the decision herself. Volkov tried a few times to make Senate give him a permission to torture Saltychikha, to get the truth out of her. Torturing was a real and legal thing back then, but they couldn't give him a permission for something like that because it was a noble woman. But they gave him a permission to scare her, to tell her that he had the permission. So he took Daria to this dungeon prison where another criminal was about to get tortured, and he told her that, tell me the truth or you'll get tortured. He even asked for a priest to come so she would confess her sins, but she didn't confess, and she was just looking at him smiling. And maybe she was a psychopath and she was not afraid of physical torturing, or someone told her that the procedure was not real, that they were only scaring her. But yeah, nothing really worked, and after 6 years since the beginning, Catherine finally read all of that, all of the evidence, and sentenced her to life imprisonment. She wrote a special decree, and in this decree she addressed Daria by calling her he and monster, like in a masculine gender. I guess that's how, yeah, masculine gender, masculine sex, which didn't really mean anything because back then the legal system, the punishments were equal for men and women, and I guess she did that only to kind of show that all the atrocious things that were made by Daria could not be associated with femininity, with a woman. So Daria was taken to Red Square in chains, in handcuffs. Then the decree was read out loud about her life imprisonment. She didn't really care. She was laughing, supposedly. And then she also stand at the pole of shame. And she finally, after I don't know a few hours, she was taken to Ivanov Monastery. Her cell was a pit underground, 3 meters deep, with the walls going like you are basically like living in a pit, a 3 meter all deep pit. No light, no communication. She could not. She was not able to send letters and write letters. But she didn't really care about sending and receiving letters because she was illiterate. And like that makes me, that's very weird. How a noble man back then could, like a noble woman, she was not able to read. But okay, yeah. And Daria lived 10 years. She spent 10 years in that pit. No normal food, no communication, no light. Of course, it was always cold, and imagine how cold it was, like down there in winter. And after 10 years, I guess, she was transferred to another monastery, or maybe it was the same monastery, but in a stone cell that was above ground, above my Russian accent, above ground, and she was even allowed to talk to people, to all the pilgrims, all the people who were visiting the monastery, but she would not talk to them. She would spit, cuss, just be nasty. She never regretted. We don't know how she looked, because after writing that decree for her life imprisonment, Catherine made everyone destroy her portraits, all the paintings of her, everything. So we don't know how she looked like. There are multiple descriptions of her appearance. Like, she was small, skinny woman. She was very tall and very big. We don't know, but so I imagine her. I don't know. I imagine her being kind of like bulky and very healthy, because after living 10 years in that pit, she lived 23 years in that stone cell next to the monastery. Again, no heating there, no heating, in the cold. Another 33 years she spent overall in imprisonment, and died. She died in 1801. And there is a rumor, it's not proved, but supposedly at the age of 50, she got pregnant by a guard, because she seduced him to get, like, I don't know, extra food, extra something, I don't know, but it's not proven. Why life imprisonment? Because there was no death penalty for nobility. There was a decree made in 1754 that forbid death penalty for noble people, for person saw the title in Russian Empire. So there are a few more cases about people like that, very cruel landlords. And just like with slave owners in America, I guess it's very similar. Some of them are men, most of them men, if we are talking about like SA type of crime towards peasants. But serfdom was not cool, both ethically and economically. So in 1861, it was abolished. There was a turning point where it was not, Russian economy would not endure. So Alexander II made everyone free, all the peasants, all the serfs, but they had to pay back to the landlords for the land that they were living on. And most of them, they got mortgages, and mortgages were subsidized by the government, so government helped the serfs to pay for their land. But it was like, imagine all of your ancestors were living on this land, working, paying rent to the owner of the land, and then again you have to pay for, even though now you are free, but you have to pay to buy this land from the landlord. So Alexander II freed 20 million of peasants, and the amount of them reduced significantly by that time. So originally, most of people in the empire were serfs, but by that time it was already 20 million, which was probably like 20%. I'm not sure, not a lot, but still all these people were trapped in poverty because they had to pay. And therefore revolution happened in 1917, and then we got communism and all of that. I just remembered that 1 year later, in 1862, Alexander II sent ambassadors to this Congress where people discussed slavery, like abolishment of slavery in the United States, and Russia presented itself as a progressive power, but at the same time we basically had the same thing here. So I think a very interesting period of history, a very interesting character. It was a real person that we talked about today. There are a few versions, there are a few diagnoses that Daria supposedly had. One of them is just like being a psychopath, a sadist, and the other one that she was trying to most of her victims, they were women, and young, beautiful women. Sometimes when you do not accept your sexuality, you start killing the objects of your desire. So that would make Daria like a sexually orientated, how do you say that? You know what I mean? Serial killer. But we do not know. We cannot know now. But her manor, her house was sold to Tuchev, the guy that she was about to marry. And then his grandchild, Fyodor Tuchev, famous Russian poet, grew up in that house, writing his first poems there. interesting fact. Yeah, guys, thank you very much for watching. Let me know if you liked this video, if you like my camera. Maybe you, I'm not sure how it's gonna look like. Let me know if you liked my babushka headwear. It was hot. Thank you